1945, the world had just emerged from World War II, with large parts facing hunger and deprivation. Over the next 8 decades, significant progress has been made in combating poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. Yet, in 2023, 1 in 11 people faced hunger, and 1 in 3 did not have access to healthy diets. It is projected that 582 million people will be chronically undernourished at the end of the decade. The world is not on track to reach any of the 7 global nutrition targets by 2030. We must regain momentum towards achieving the SDGs, ensuring no one is left behind, especially the most vulnerable. We must continue progressing, avoiding stagnation, and reversing decades of progress. FAO is working with its members and partners to transform agri-food systems to be more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. Science, technology, and innovation are crucial to accelerating this transformation alongside the contributions of data, governance, human capital, and institutions. In the 80 years since the formation of FAO, the world has witnessed rapid advancements across various fields of science, technology, and innovation. The FAO Science and Innovation Forum provides an opportunity to explore key themes such as biotechnologies, digital agriculture, and community-driven innovations, among others. These themes may raise polarizing viewpoints. At the same time, when deployed appropriately, these innovations play a significant role in agri-food systems transformation. To harness them for agri-food systems transformation, we need to close the science, technology, and innovation gap in low and middle-income countries, scale up successful solutions, evaluate their impacts, and harness the power of behavioral science. You can be part of this transformation. Welcome to the FAO Science and Innovation Forum 2024 under the umbrella of World Food Forum. Inclusive science and innovation for agri-food systems transformation, leaving no one behind.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome you to the 3rd edition of the FAO Science and Innovation Forum. My name is Beth Crawford, and I am the Chief Scientist at Interim here at FAO. It's great to see so many of you here and to welcome back some familiar faces from the first and 2nd editions. So the main theme, as you just saw on the video, of the Science and Innovation Forum for 2024 is inclusive science and innovation for agri-food systems transformation, leaving no one behind. Thank you for joining us from around the globe, both in person, here at FAO headquarters, and online. I'm delighted to see such a diverse group of participants from various regions, age groups, genders, stakeholder groups, and scientific disciplines. I'm also pleased to welcome all the young scientists who are joining us today, especially the World Food Forum Young Scientists Group. The FAO Chief Scientist has been a patron for this group since its inception 3 years ago. Multilingualism is, of course, a key aspect of inclusivity, so I just wanted to let everyone know that there is interpretation in the 6 FAO official languages. You have earpieces here in the plenary, and for online participants, there is a button at the bottom of your screen. So as part of the World Food Forum, this event will serve as a platform for global dialogue, knowledge exchange, and collaboration among scientists, innovators, policymakers, farmers' organizations, and stakeholders from various sectors. So in the next 2 days, let's share ideas, showcase cutting-edge technologies, and engage in scientific debate on the role of technologies and innovations in agri-food systems transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, This year, the Science and Innovation Forum will focus on 3 critical themes: biotechnology, community-driven innovations, and digital agriculture. These themes have been selected not only for their significant role in transitioning towards efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food systems, but also because of the questions they raise and the sometimes polarizing viewpoints they elicit. These themes are also FAO's priorities in innovation as laid out in the FAO Strategic Framework 2022-31 and aligned with the FAO Science and Innovation Strategy. Over these next 2 days, we will have a total of 15 sessions where these themes will be explored in depth, alongside discussing how to close the science, technology, and innovation gap, scaling up successful solutions, evaluating their impacts, and harnessing the power of behavioral science. At the end of this opening session, we will launch a report by the World Food Forum Young Scientist Group on digital technologies for multidimensional youth engagement. After the end of the following session today, we will launch another report on foresight on emerging technologies and innovations. Also, just to let you know that tomorrow at noon, we will launch a program on accelerator mentorship for women-led small and medium enterprises in Africa. Now, aside from all of the sessions and launches, you are, of course, all welcome to visit the exhibitions, which we have in the atrium, and to participate in exciting activities that we have in our acceleration zone. So now it's my honor to welcome to the stage the Director General of FAO, Dr. Chu Dongyu, to give his opening remarks. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, all the scientists and also young and young at heart. And I'm so delighted to officially open the 2024 FAO Science Innovation Forum 2024 under the umbrella of the World Food Forum. I'm optimistic that this forum will continue to be successful in the years to come. As a scientist, I believe in the power of the science and the innovation to uplift the humanity, especially the most vulnerable people, as a cost-effective tools. This is why we choose the theme Inclusive Science and Innovation for Agri-Food System Transformation, leaving no one behind. There are many technologies and innovations that are being adopted or in the pipeline, but in line with FAO vision, we will focus on technology beneficial to the farmers most, such as new varieties, new agricultural inputs, biotechnologies, and digital agricultural technology, and so on, so forth. These innovations are central to the transformation of global agri-food system to be more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable. The Science and Innovation Forum is opening on the World Food Day today. And also it's a birthday of the FAO. It's 79 years. So we are going to count down 80 minus 1 for the next year to celebrate the 80th anniversary. It's timing for us to revisit, rethinking, recycle, and restart. This year's World Food Day is a timely reminder that all the people have the right to adequate food. The right to food for a better life, a better future should be underlying principle guiding our discussions on science, technology, and innovation. As we gather today, we are reminded of the significant challenges facing in our agri-food systems, but we must also recognize the huge opportunity that the science and innovation offer to address these challenges, and to ensure that nutritious and diverse, safe food are available, accessible, and affordable for everyone, leaving no one behind. Today, we also started, as I said, a countdown to the FAO 80th anniversary, 2025. Over the past 79 years, we have seen notable progress in FAO work and impact, yet there are still big gaps between high, middle, and low-income countries. Within the countries, disparity persists for small-scale producers, women, girls, migrants, youth, rural, and indigenous peoples. Science, technology, and innovation are key tools to close these gaps with the proper investments. Dear colleagues, the recently adopted UN Pact for the Future highlighted that urgent need to transform global agrifood systems. The goal is central to FAO's mandate, and we are taking the lead alongside the key partners to assist our members in the transformation journey. I'm so delighted also DG, my dear brothers, also he came to join us. Because only the UN system, only these two organizations, FAO and AIE, have enjoyed more than 60 years of physical collaboration, not soft collaboration. We have physical buildings, centers, laboratory outside of the Vienna. Science, technology, and innovation are key accelerators of agrifood system transformation, but they must be inclusive to ensure that the transition is just and equitable. This principle lies at the heart of the FAO Science Innovation Strategy and the related strategy on the climate change. Science and innovation plays a vital role in addressing the impact of the climate crisis, including biodiversity loss. By optimizing our resources, we can increase food production to feed a growing population, while also reduce our environmental impact. Science and innovation must prioritize the small-scale producers, women, youth, and indigenous peoples by ensuring their participation and access to the context-specific technologies enhance food security. Strong political will and good governance are critical to reap the benefit of science, technology, and innovation. Governance framework must include the diverse actors to create the policies that support the sustainable agrifood system, ensuring innovation benefits everyone along the value chain. My own 40 years experience as a scientist before I moved here, and the policymaker also during past about 20 years, have shown that me firsthand how the powerful science, technology, and innovation can be. I expect this forum will serve as a unique platform for dialogue, knowledge exchange, and collaboration among the various global partners. However, beyond dialogue, we needed to focus on solutions leading to the concrete actions, tangible actions that can impact and benefit the farmers, consumers, fish workers, pastoralists, foresters, rural and urban communities, women, youth, and indigenous peoples. Collaboration between scientists, small-scale producers, and the private sectors are key to co-creating practical sustainable solutions by blending local and traditional knowledge with scientific advancement. I'm proud to say that these communities, especially small-scale producers and the family farmers, have always been the central to FAO partnership and support to the members. And the FAO continues to champion these vulnerable groups in all the global fora, such as the recent Summit of the Future, G7, G20, and upcoming COPs meetings, among others. Dear colleagues, fellow scientists, let us make use of the time and the opportunity to strengthen our collaboration. As I always said, that we needed to work together, think together, learning together, design together, so that we can contribute together. FAO is committed to supporting the inclusive science innovation to accelerate food system transformation and to ensure that no one is left behind. I wish you have a fruitful, scientific, and professional discussion. I thank you.
Thank you, Thank you very much, Director General. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have two Nobel laureates as our keynote speakers this afternoon. We have Professor Michael Creamer, who is a 2019 Nobel laureate in economic sciences, and Professor Carlos Nobre, who is a contributor to the reports of the IPCC, which was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2007. The first keynote speech will be delivered by Professor Creamer, who currently serves as the Director of Development at the Development Innovation Lab at the University of Chicago in the United States of America. He's a 2019 Nobel laureate, as I just mentioned, in economic sciences. Now, Professor Creamer will discuss how we can use the experimental method to develop innovations, generate evidence on impact and cost effectiveness, and scale up the most successful ones to reach millions of people. I have the honor to invite Professor Michael Creamer to deliver his keynote speech. Thank you. Thank you.
So the experimental method has long been key to the development of new medicines and vaccines. And this is in part because randomized controlled trials make it possible to disentangle the causal impact of new medicines from potential confounding factors. They're also widely used by tech firms, where they're often called A/B tests, and big tech firms are using this to try and sell us products every day and are perfect and maintain our focus, our attention using behavioral science techniques to use their apps. And they're very effective at it. But the food and agriculture problems that we're facing are some of the most important in the world. And we've long used, agricultural scientists have long used the experimental method to test new seeds, for example. But I think there's scope to use the experimental method much more broadly to address the interlinked challenges of climate change, food security, and agricultural productivity. And let me discuss a couple of examples. One that I think illustrates the process of how they can be used to develop new innovations, to test their impact, and then to help them reach scale. That's at least starting to, in the initial stages of that scaling process. The second is much earlier, but I think is an area for future investment, as was actually outlined in the introduction. So climate change is making it harder to predict the weather and for farmers to make decisions. When to plant, when to apply fertilizer, when to harvest, what crops and which seed varieties to use. Now, fortunately, we're in the middle of a huge revolution in weather forecasting. We've seen improvements in traditional weather forecasting methods. In some areas, it's now possible to predict monsoon onset up to a month in advance, giving farmers time to even adjust their plant, which crops they plant, how much inputs to use. But there's also a revolution in AI-based weather forecasts. These can be more accurate, but they're also they run 100,000 times faster. That makes them much cheaper and really opens up the opportunity for much more inclusion and for democratizing access. And forecasts can be tailored to the particular needs of a particular farmer, or not a particular farmer, but to farmers maybe someday, but not tomorrow, but to particular farmers growing a particular crop in a particular region. So now there's a lot of potential there, and I'm doing what people often do. They get excited about ideas, but it's important to also remember there are lots of practical barriers. If you develop these forecasts, even if you can get them to farmers, will farmers understand the forecasts? Will farmers be able to use that information to decide what to do? If they can, well, maybe they need other inputs. Maybe they need credit to be able to buy to buy the seeds that they need to adjust to the weather conditions. Well, that type of uncertainty can often lead to paralysis among policymakers, or to an attempt to boldly move forward, but then sometimes that doesn't work out. We now have the experimental method that can be applied. It's been used in the sciences for a very long time. It's increasingly being used in the social sciences. And we've seen a number of studies that have looked at the issue of what happens when you give accurate weather forecasts to farmers. How do they react? And what we're finding quite consistently, I'll mention a few of them, is that when accurate forecasts are available, farmers do adjust their behavior, despite all the other barriers that exist. That's not to say the other barriers aren't important. They might be better able to adjust if they had more information. So for example, in Ghana, farmers in communities that received forecasts via SMS messages timed planting and fertilizer and pesticide applications for days when light rain was forecasted, when the level of soil moisture facilitates seed germination and absorption of fertilizer and pesticide. In India, farmers who received digitally distributed seasonal forecasts altered their planting and investment decisions to better align with the forecasts. Farmers who were had expected a shorter monsoon and heard that it would be longer invested 34% more in pre-harvest expenditures, and farmers who had expected the opposite reacted the opposite way. Overall, this created net welfare gains. But in some cases, it's been possible to quantify this. In Benin, disseminating forecasts over SMS generated benefits of between $100 and $350 per farmer per year. In Colombia, a randomized trial of disseminating weather forecasts and price information by SMS found gains of between $100 and $280 per farmer per year, although that was fairly wide confidence intervals. So forecasts also have large benefits beyond just increasing yields. They can increase resilience to disasters, and they can improve health by enabling early interventions and informing public health strategies. For example, 1 to 10 day ahead floodcasts in Bangladesh led to timely evacuations, minimizing both human and financial losses. So the benefits of more accurate monsoon forecasts in India alone have been estimated at $3 billion. The cost of these forecasts, so we're able to quantify not just that there is a benefit, but the dollar value on that. And then you can compare that to the cost. And the costs, today those are in millions of dollars to get a forecast for say, monsoon onset. But those costs are rapidly coming down with AI forecasting. So once you have this type of information, a second thing that the experimental method can do is it can help transmit that information in very clear and transparent ways to policymakers, because they actually have evidence with the treatment group and the comparison group, and comparing the difference is a very easy to explain to policymakers. So in India, we shared the results of some of the work that had been done, both in India and around the world, with policymakers from the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Based on that, they decided that they wanted to try this at larger scale. And this past monsoon, they sent 9 million farmers monsoon onset messages. They're still analyzing the results, but they've said that they would like to take this national this year for the next monsoon. That type of program could then reach hundreds of millions of members of farming families across India, yielding just tremendous benefits. So this is an example where experimental method was used to help develop innovations, to help test them, the impact not just of is the forecast good, but the impact on humans, and then by bringing those results to policymakers, it led to scaling. Of course, continuous improvement will be needed. We'll need efforts to optimize the messages through A/B testing. but I think this is a bright future, and many other governments and many multilateral development organizations have indicated interest in expanding this approach. Let me talk about something that's really at the opposite end of the spectrum. There's really intriguing results from early stage papers on some behavioral innovations to help some of the poorest farmers. So for example, work in Ethiopia and Kenya looked at showing farmers videos to help broaden their horizons and raise their aspirations. And this yielded remarkable gains in socioeconomic gains. There's work in Zambia where hungry season is a big problem, and a simple budget planning tool led to gains for farmers that they saved more, they were less likely to go hungry during the hungry season, they had more money left over to invest in planting the next season, yielding improved forecasts, improved outcomes the next season. And we've been now this is something that's not yet ready for scaling because work would need to be done to adapt those things that were done in small-scale trials so they could be done at larger scale. But some of that work is ongoing now. More could be done. And if these techniques could be eventually transmitted through digital agriculture, the gains could be immense. So, we've been looking at, through the Commission on Innovation for Climate Change, Food Security, and Agriculture, which I chair, we've been working to catalog a number of different innovations, try to look at the evidence for each, and recommend next steps, whether that's scaling or whether that's further research and development or further testing of the innovation. And I'd be happy to share findings with anybody here. But let me turn aside from these examples of exciting individual innovations to the broader question of how to systematize the process and how to manage the risk of innovation, because investing in innovation is risky. So one way to do this is through open, tiered, evidence-based social innovation funds. That's quite a mouthful, so I'll explain it. But I should say I'm scientific director for something called Development Innovation Ventures at the US, which is such an innovation fund. France also has the Fund for Innovation and Development. So that long name, what is it? Well, first, they're open to different types of applicants. One of the themes that was stressed was community-driven innovations. So these are designed to be open to community organizations, to researchers, to NGOs, to private firms, to governments even. They can all apply. In fact, we're open for business, so you can Google us if you're an innovator and would like to apply. We have small amounts of funding for piloting innovations or for rigorously testing them, often using the experimental method, but not always, in a way that can look at the impact of the innovation and also the cost effectiveness of the innovation. And then to discipline the funding decisions and avoid throwing good money after bad, for the larger grants, we have quite tough guidelines. You have to have demonstrated both impact and cost effectiveness to qualify for one of those. Now, this approach, we now can look at our own impact. We've been around for just over a decade, or now approaching 15 years. But we looked at our impact, and we looked at our early innovations, so our whole portfolio. We made $16 million in grants in our first couple of years. And when we looked at the benefits, and this was estimated very conservatively, just looking at some of the ones that scaled the most, we found benefits of $17 for every dollar invested. So over $280 million of benefits, and hundreds of millions of people have now been reached. I think what this suggests is that this is not some sort of secret recipe. France is now doing something very similar. This approach is something that I think there's scope for other organizations to set up similar funds to support innovations for agriculture and food security. And in addition to discussing specific innovations that we've examined through the Innovation Commission, either I or my colleagues at Development Innovation Ventures would be happy to talk if anybody's interested in setting up a similar fund to work on agriculture and food security. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Creamer, for that really inspiring speech with your interesting examples and talking to us about the importance of accurate forecasts, of adapting and scaling good ideas, and then, of course, of that systemizing and managing risk, all of this to reach the most vulnerable in actors in agri-food systems. Thank you very much. So now the next keynote speech will be delivered by Professor Carlos Nobre, who currently serves as a senior scientist at the University of São Paulo's Institute for Advanced Studies in Brazil, and as the co-chair of the Science Panel for the Amazon. He is a contributor to the reports of the IPCC, which was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007. Professor Nobre will share his thoughts on the following question. How can we ensure that science and innovation in agri-food systems is inclusive and benefits marginalized communities, especially in regions most affected by climate change? He will also talk about, in this regard, his work in the Amazon forest and what lessons we can draw from that. I have the honor to invite Professor Nobre to deliver his keynote remarks. Thank you.
Buongiorno a tutti. Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much, Beth. I will talk to you mostly about the Amazon as a good example of this question, how really to develop agri-food systems sustainable mostly for all the populations in the tropical forests. The title is Positive Tipping Points for Amazonia, the Urgent Need of Forest Solutions Through Innovation. The Amazon rainforest is an essential part of the Earth system. The Amazon rainforest is important biodiversity ecosystem services, including water and carbon storage, and provide the livelihood base for indigenous people and local communities. The problem is that the Amazon rainforest is being quickly turned into areas for global grain, vegetable oil, and beef production. Sadly, we're turning the Amazon rainforest into CO2 emitter and also spreader of particulates into the atmosphere. The synergistic combination of deforestation, forest degradation, wildfires, and climate change is causing irreversible damage to the physical and biological structure of the forest. If deforestation continues at the rates of recent decades and global warming significantly exceeds 1.5 degrees, the forest will surpass the tipping point. Amazonia is very close to reaching a tipping point that can lead to more than between 50 and 7% of the forest becoming open canopy, highly degraded ecosystem. I was the first scientist to publish science articles about the risk of tipping point. That was 1990, 1991. Now, unfortunately, a lot of observations in Amazon show how close the forest is of a tipping point. The dry season is now 4 to 5 weeks lengthier over all southern Amazon, 2.3 million square kilometers since 1979. Tree mortality is increasing tremendously, and also large portions of the Amazon, and also over southeastern Amazon, the dry season is 2 degrees warmer, 20–30% drier, and the forest has become a carbon source. These factors have significant impacts at regional and global scales, creating uncertainties regarding crucial ecosystems services provided by forests, including rainfall recycling, atmospheric cooling, natural disaster mitigation, food provision. This is an evolution over tens and tens of millions of years of the Amazon forest. Tremendous effectiveness in recycling water. You can see there in the slide. The Amazon generates something like 17 billion tons of water vapor that goes to the south of the Amazon, to the Andes. This is a very important ecosystem service as well, in addition to storing more than 150 billion tons of carbon and maintaining the largest biodiversity. Undoubtedly, there is an urgent need to halt deforestation degradation while promoting forest solutions through education, science, and technological innovation. So I will now show the pathways, 3 initiatives that we are developing in the Amazon to save the Amazon. From problems to solution, that's why I call positive tipping point, since the Amazon is very close to a negative tipping point. If we continue with deforestation, if deforestation exceeds 20-30%, now it's 18%. And another 17% of the Amazon, several stages of degradation. And global warming goes above 2 degrees, between 2 and 2.5 degrees. Severe droughts, we had 2023, 2024, record-breaking drought in the Amazon. We have had 4 droughts, 2005, 2010, 2015, 16, 2020. Before, we used to have 1 severe drought every 20 years, 2 decades. Now, 4 severe droughts in 2 decades. So very, very serious risk. So let me show you going in looking for solutions. The first one, of course, is to get to zero deforestation, degradation, and wildfires. Also, 2024, we had a record-breaking wildfires in most of the Amazon, in all of most part of South America. Amazon forest, tropical savanna. So this is also a serious problem. Fortunately, 2023, 2024, for the first time in 11, 12 years, we had a severe reduction of deforestation. All over the Amazon, 2023, 2024, we reached 64% reducing deforestation compared to 2022. So that's one way we are going. So the other solution we call arcs of restoration. This is a science panel for the Amazon we launched at COP27 in 2022 in Egypt. The policy brief called Arcs of Restoration. Well, no, okay. I will just read it because I will not show all the slides. And I just want to say what's arcs of restoration, because we have these 2 large-scale arcs of deforestation. The southern one from the Atlantic to Bolivia, and along the Andes, that's the area with the largest biodiversity in the planet, 400 meters to 1,300 meters, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. So those are highly deforested areas. The lowlands, it's mostly livestock farming, pastures and cattle ranches. And along the Andes is illegal mining, oil exploration, and some agriculture as well. So we promoted, we have to do this arc of restoration. In addition to zero deforestation, degradation, fires, we have to restore a large part. So these arcs of restoration is to restore, I would say, ideally speaking, 1 million square kilometers, not less than 500,000 square kilometers. Why? Not only to remove carbon. Of course, if we do that, we are going to remove 400,000, something like 12 billion tons of carbon dioxide. However, it's more important really to make the forest, the Amazon, stopping going very close to the tipping point, because the forest recycles water, reduces the temperature. So fortunately, the good initiative is Brazil launched during COP28 in Dubai the Arc of Restoration project. This is a project to restore 240,000 square kilometers all over southern Amazon. Already has started this project. It costs $40 billion, but it's okay. I mean, why not? Brazil is going after that. We have to restore the forest areas, degraded areas in all Amazonian countries, not only in Brazil. And that's very important. So this project has started, and the project will donate, I would say, hundreds of millions of dollars to indigenous communities and local communities for doing forest restoration. And and also the secondary forest and the restoration forest removes a lot of carbon as well. 11 to 18 tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year for 35 years. So basically, and also a large part of this forest restoration will to develop agroforestry systems. And I would say the next solution, nature-based solution, is really to learn with the indigenous people. The indigenous people came to South America, to the Amazon, 16,000 years ago, and they developed, you know, when Europeans came to the Amazon 500 years ago, there were about 10 million indigenous people there, and they had developed their indigenous science. Indigenous science was very important because the indigenous people used 2,300 products from biodiversity, 250 fruits, more than 600 products from agri-food system. Why I say agri-food? Because they were really developing 5,000 to 8,000 years ago. The indigenous scientists, mostly indigenous women, they started domesticating a large number of various products. Just to give you two numbers, they domesticate manioc. They create 800 varieties of manioc, cocoa, 1,300 varieties of cocoa, and also the soil in the Amazon, except the Andes, is very, very poor in nutrients, very, very poor, and a lot of rainfall for millions of years. And so the indigenous women also created a more nutrient-rich soil. So that's just to say the science of indigenous people. Unfortunately, in the 1970s, from 1975, there was only 0.5% of the Amazon deforested. As I said, today we had deforested and degraded 35%. And we ignore all this knowledge of these indigenous people and local communities. We brought only cattle. 90% of the deforestation, first deforestation in the lowlands in the Amazon is for livestock farming. So the other nature-based solution is what we call a social bioeconomy of healthy standing forests and flowing rivers for the whole Amazonia. Yesterday we had this very good meeting here in this about that, this social bioeconomy for the Amazon. So basically, the idea is to show the potential of all these forest products. And so basically, also, we are doing, I just want to give you one idea of this potential of this social bioeconomy. Just to give you some figures, let's say compare cattle ranches with soy crops and these agroforestry systems, cooperatives in the Amazon. Livestock farming, it's $50 to $100 per hectare profit, 1 to 2 workers per 100 hectares. Soy crops, $200 to $300 of profits per hectare, 0.5 to 1 worker per 100 hectares. There are several hundred cooperatives in the Amazon, agroforest systems. They use more than 50 products of biodiversity. So these cooperatives, they have profits of $300 to $700 per hectare, and they hire 20 to 40 workers, just to show the potential of this social bioeconomy of standing forest. So we have to give scale to that. For instance, the figure in Brazil, in the Brazilian Amazon, beef is 17% of GDP, beef, and all products from the forest, acai berry, cocoa, Brazil nuts, etc., is 1.2%. So only one product, beef, is 15 times more economically than the forest products. So we have really to give scale to the forest products. And then also we have to really improve science, technology, and innovation, combining with the knowledge of indigenous people. So basically, we created the project Amazonia 4.0. We want to demonstrate how important it is to combine science, technology with indigenous knowledge and local communities to create innovative technologies. So this initial project now, we are doing capacity development of communities there for adding value to the forest products with Industry 4.0, but also with their knowledge. So we are doing capacity development in one value chain. This is a cocoa value chain. We have capacitated 2 communities for industrializing cocoa to producing chocolate, and also producing chocolate of Theobroma grandiflorum, in indigenous language is cupuaçu, also very, very good chocolate, and many other products. So we did capacity development of 2 communities in the Brazilian Amazon, and fortunately, we are already getting construction of a first biofactory for one community, a donation by a supermarket. So we are going to show that we are going to get 120 families of that community. They are very poor. They will reach middle class, just to give you. And also we are developing the products for laboratories also for Brazil nuts, for acai berry, for also genome sequencing. We are developing a laboratory for doing genome sequencing of plants, animals, and microorganisms. And then also, I want to say that we are also developing a concept. We are going to release a feasibility study now in November. We want to construct in all of the Amazon the so-called Amazonia Institute of Technology. We want really to create a Pan-Amazonia Institute of Technology to really create the ways to develop this new bioeconomy with scientific innovations. As I said, indigenous people were using more than 2,000 products of biodiversity, and we use very, very little, not even 100 products. So that's the Institute of Technology. We'll have 5 key areas: forest and social biodiversity, Amazon waters, sustainable infrastructure, and urban Amazon, and outer landscapes, how to restore a large part of that. So in a way, we are hopeful that starting 2025, we will be able to convince Amazonian countries to create an Institute of Technology of this very high quality, but also bringing 20% of students will be indigenous people and local communities. So that's our dream, really, to create is almost like an MIT in the all Pan-Amazonia. So I would say, let me just finish really to tell you, this is the solution for the Amazon. We hope to give scale to the potential of this new social bioeconomy, really learning a lot from indigenous people, local communities, and that's necessary to avoid the tipping point, restoring a large portion of the Amazon. Therefore, I just want to say, to avoid irreversible environmental and social changes leading to tipping points, it's necessary to shift to a new regenerative and innovative model based on the social biodiversity, fostering positive tipping points, as I mentioned. It's crucial to include indigenous people and their knowledge in equitable benefit sharing and reducing inequality, playing central roles, and I'm talking, example is the Amazon, but we should really do the same for tropical forests in Equatorial Africa, Southeast Asia. We have really to save all tropical forests. So my final message to all of you is, let's save the Amazon rainforest and all tropical forests. Let's save all the Amazonian people and all the people of all tropical forests, because really that's what all of us want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those very important words, Professor Nobre. Indeed, focusing on the importance of inclusive science and innovation, on social bioeconomy, forest restoration, and excellent examples of how you have been handling that tipping point in the Amazon. Thank you so much. So moving on now, FAO and the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, have enjoyed a long-standing partnership. And actually, 2024 marks the 60th anniversary of the joint FAO-IAEA Center of Nuclear Techniques in Food and Agriculture. So on this occasion, we have the honor to have present with us the Director General of IAEA, Mr. Rafael Mariano Grossi. DG Grossi will share with us the Atoms for Food initiative, which was jointly launched last year by our two agencies, and it aims at taking advantage of R&D in the joint FAO-IAE laboratories to provide tailor-made solutions to our member countries. DG Grossi, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great pleasure and an honor to be here. As you were just saying, a year ago, also this moment of the year where we know that all those caring for the food and agriculture problems of the world and the solutions that are needed come here to Rome. We all converge here, and of course we did it. And as you were saying, perhaps I know the FAO family knows this, but those who are not familiar may be asking themselves what the nuclear watchdog is doing in this August gathering, and I will try to explain that. Yes, 60 years ago already, people at the IAEA and FAO realized that there is a lot that nuclear techniques and applications can do in this area. And we have been working all along with DG Chu, who had to go to another, of course, commitment, which is all natural. And thanks to his leadership, and we decided that we should do something about scaling up those efforts commensurate to the magnitude of the problems that we are facing. And I think the lucid presentations that we just had indicate the urgency, that the urgencies, I would say, that we are facing and the need to find solutions to some of those. And I would say that this was what inspired this idea of atoms for food. Not that, as I was saying, that nothing had been done before, but that we realized that there was space and indeed a need to gather our efforts to work in a more efficient way and to try to do it in a very concrete, results-oriented way. So Atoms for Food, which is this project that we launched a year ago, is about what I would very simple way describe as a number of services that we give to our member states so that they can address very specific problems that they have and that we can help them get to the solutions that they need. IAEA is a different organization than others. We have, together with FAO, in the outskirts of beautiful Vienna, we have a huge compound of laboratories where we do the science of the projects that I'm going to explain. And this is how we tried, together with our FAO colleagues, to look at the very specific focus areas that would be dealing with the problems that we see our member states facing the most. So we put together this idea of Atoms for Food, which of course is basically seven services, seven ways in which they can address these problems. Starts, of course, because this is a state-driven project, so basically we do what countries, the members of the IEA and the FAO say that is really a problem. So we have an assessment with them, and then we move in different areas. Let me give you some examples, and they have been referred to in different ways at the presentations of the Nobel laureates that preceded me. For example, in the area of crop development and production. Through nuclear techniques, as you may know, we can accelerate natural mutation processes that can help us develop crops that are drought resistant, for example. It is obvious we are talking about climate change and global warming and all these things, which means in very simple terms that we have less water, that temperatures are soaring, and that the seeds and crops that we have, of course, are more vulnerable, fragile. They cannot resist the environmental conditions that we have. So we have to do something about it. With these nuclear techniques, we are able to still grow essential crops in areas that have far less water than they used to have and are far hotter than they used to be. This is in some places called smart agriculture, more crop per drop, and so on, and we have all these catchphrases. But this is what it is at the core of this project, what we are trying to do. And we are doing it with so much success that this has exceeded I would say, the survivability, the crop survivability threshold to move into the yield, doubling or tripling in some cases for rice in Asia, for cassava in Africa, and many other manioc in South America. Professor, you were talking about that. So this is one example. Another service that we are providing has to do with water management and soil evaluation. Of course, again, and for the same problem that I was just talking about, there is the issue of the soil and the degradation of the soil that was also mentioned just a second ago, but something that allows us to help communities, farmers in agriculture to look at the situation, also to make a more rational use of a scarce resource like water, and very importantly, scientific-based utilization of fertilizers. When we have the scientific elements to determine what the right amount, if at all, of fertilizer is needed, then we are providing a very concrete service to the communities. And this is another example of what we are doing it already, all right? This is not a scientific paper, this is not a policy recommendation we are having. This is what Atoms for Food with FAO and IAEA is doing for countries. Another, of course, very important area is that of animal health and production. We know that in large parts of the world, cattle is essential, and information about pathogenic situations, zoonosis, and other affecting cattle raising and production is very, very important. We have, and I think in this forum you are analyzing very importantly the digital impact and how digital instruments are helping us be more efficient. We have, for example, a platform called iVetNet, which brings together hundreds of veterinary laboratories all over the world with which we are with whom we are sharing very important information. If we have an event happening in Asia or in Africa that could be affecting in a similar ways cattlers in South America, then we have this ability to do that. Just a couple of years ago, we were able to attack a very violent wild fusarium that was attacking bananas in the Andean region, using the example we had to successfully deal with this problem in China. And so we were able to get that information, to bring it to Latin America, to bring the scientists and technologists to Zybersdorf, and to train them there and to go there as well to help. Of course, a very important area, and I'm already at the fourth, it has to do with pest control, the famous sterile insect technique, which in itself is nothing new, but is badly needed, and especially now when we are seeing the resurgence of fruit fly and other, or the New World screwworm in the Rio de la Plata basin, for example, in the south of Brazil, in Uruguay, in Argentina, which is a very serious situation that we are having, and that, of course, makes it absolutely necessary to strengthen the capacities to develop sterile insects to try to control these very serious problems. Not to talk about issues that have to do less with food, but with human health as well, with the return of dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and so on and so forth. Fifth term, of course, food security. Food security is very important to prevent the use or misuse of hazardous foods. And lastly, public health, which is also very important when it is based on scientific-based information. So, dear colleagues, as you can see, mine is not a scientific presentation. It is something else. It is, in my opinion, one of the most important things we can do in international organizations to deal with the problems that scientists are highlighting for us. Deal with the problem. Deal with the problem. Bring a solution, all right? Policy and advocacy are essential, but please, let's deal with the problem. This is what the IEA and FAO have been doing for 60 years and 60 years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much, DG Grossi, for your important words there and to deal with the problem. I think that's really what we hope to do over these next couple days in our discussions as well, focus on problems and solutions. What can we do to address the issues that we're seeing all around us? So thank you so much. So we're now moving on to the second phase of this session, and we will have a panel discussion where we have some panel members with us here and some will join us online. So let me just introduce who we have with us for this next phase. Online, we have Dr. Amandeep Singh Gill, who's the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Technology, and he is at the UN headquarters in New York. Here I see him behind me. Nice to see you, sir. Thank you. Then we also have Ms. Rola Dashti, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, or ESQA. She has kindly sent her recorded intervention, and unfortunately, she cannot be with us today due to the current situation in Beirut, Lebanon, where the ESQA office is. We also have Professor Jim Ski, the chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, who has also kindly sent his recorded intervention, as he unfortunately could not be with us today due to other urgent commitments. And then I'd like to invite the panelists who are with us here today to join me on stage. So we have in person Professor Valmain Toki, who is a professor of law from the University of Waikato. Please, if you can feel free to come up. Thank you. In New Zealand. She is the chair of the United Nations Expert Mechanism on the Rights of Indigenous People. Welcome. Then we also have Mr. Wendt Wendland, who is the Director of Traditional Knowledge Division, Global Challenges and Partnership Sector of the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO. Thank you. I'll sit there. Thank you. You can sit here. Thank you. And then we have the Professor Jingyan Li, who's the Associate Dean, Office of Research and Innovation, and Professor of Nutrition at Cornell University in the United States, and Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Nutrition. Welcome, Professor Li. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin this panel by listening to our recorded interventions by the two panelists who unfortunately cannot join us in person today. So the first recorded intervention will be Ms. Rola Dashti, who is the Executive Secretary of ESQA, and she'll be responding to the following question. In what ways can science and technology contribute and play a pivotal role in fostering an inclusive and equitable transition in agri-food systems, ensuring active participation and empowerment of women? Let's listen to Ms. Dashti. Thank you. So we'll have the video of Ms. Rola Dashti.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, picture this: a field where the soil is fertile, crops are thriving, and women's farmers are leading agriculture's transformation. This is not a distant dream. It's a future we can create today through the power of science and technology. In the Arab region, 170 million people suffer from food insecurity, with 38% unable to afford a healthy diet. Women make up nearly 19% of the agricultural workforce, along with countless others in the informal sector. Yet, they often lack the tools, resources, and opportunities to reach their full potential. Many women in agriculture have only basic literacy skills, which limits their ability to benefit from modern advancements. But within this challenge lies an immense opportunity. Science and technology can change this story. But to do so, technology must not be a privilege for a few. It must be accessible, relevant, and inclusive. It must meet women where they are, build on their traditional knowledge, and equip them with modern tools designed to fit their needs. Imagine for a moment a woman farmer in a remote village using a voice-activated app, one that speaks her language and suits her literacy level. She uses this app to monitor the weather, predict pest outbreaks, and connect directly with buyers, cutting out intermediaries and securing a fair price for her produce. This is not just about progress, it's about transformation. This is how we need to approach technology in agriculture. Not just incremental progress, but bold, life-changing solutions. But we cannot stop at solving today's issues. We must also plan for tomorrow. Foresight is crucial. As climate patterns shift, populations grow, and natural resources become scarcer, we need systems that can adapt. This is where technology's real potential lies, in helping us anticipate and respond to future challenges. Consider artificial intelligence, AI. AI can provide real-time data to help farmers make informed decisions, from water usage to crop management. Precision agriculture, powered by AI, helps women farmers save time and resources by knowing exactly how much water or fertilizer their crops need, reducing waste and increasing yields. In places like Jordan and Oman, these technologies have already improved farming practices, showing us what's the possible when we scale these innovations across the region. Looking further, AI and robotics will continue to revolutionize agricultural food systems. These tools will democratize farming by giving smallholders women farmers access to advanced techniques. Robotics will ease the burden of physical tasks, freeing up time for women to focus on strategic farm management, business development, and participation in local governance. But to make this future a reality, we must close the gap between rural communities and technological innovation. This requires more than just deploying technology. It requires strong public-private partnerships. We need to ensure that rural women have digital infrastructure, including connectivity, localized technologies, and affordable financing to invest in these tools they need. This way, women, regardless of their location or educational background, can benefit fully from the digital revolution. This approach must be underpinned by policy foresight that builds a digital ecosystem, fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. Digital microfinance platforms can offer small loans to help women purchase AI-powered tools like crop sensors. Blockchain technology can provide secure financial transactions, especially for women with limited access to formal banking. We also need to think ahead with data analytics to drive gender-sensitive policies. By collecting and analyzing gender disaggregated data, governments can design more effective interventions, ensuring women are included across the agriculture value chain. And let's not forget the power of agribusiness entrepreneurship. By connecting women to digital platforms and incubators, we can help them turn traditional farming practices into scalable businesses. Imagine rural women exporting organic products to global markets, all through digital platforms that connect them directly to buyers and business partners. In conclusion, the future of agriculture is not just about adopting technology. It's about ensuring that women are at the heart of this transformation. By doing so, we will build a sustainable and inclusive future, one that leaves no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was Ms. Rola Dashti. Thank you for her words. We'll move on then to Professor Jim Skew, the chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, who has also provided his video. And he explains himself the question that he's been asked to respond to, so I won't go into that. We can go directly to the video. Thank you.
Dear colleagues at the Food and Agricultural Organization, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me as the chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The question the organizers have posed for me for this video was, how do you perceive the role of science in facilitating climate change adaptation and mitigation efforts while enhancing inclusiveness, especially in the light of the IPCC's findings and recommendations? As I sat down to consider my remarks, I can confess that I felt like I was back in a high school examination, faced with a challenging essay question and a blank piece of paper, especially as I wouldn't consider myself to be an agri-food expert. But let me draw on two things in making my remarks. First, when I was an IPCC working group co-chair in the 6th assessment cycle, my working group managed the production of the Special Report on Climate Change and Land, and this was published 5 years ago. My own background is in energy research, and I had the growing realization that even though energy is complex and difficult, nothing can rival the complexity and challenge of climate change in the land sector. Second, for 5 years, I chaired a Just Transition Commission in my native Scotland. There we took the Just Transition challenge well beyond that of transitioning away from fossil fuels. We started to take on the social and economic challenges of climate action in the agriculture sector in the context of wider land use change. So starting with the 2019 IPCC Land Report, it broke new ground in several ways. First, it took a systems perspective, looking at the food system as a whole, rather than focusing exclusively on the supply side in the agriculture sector. It concluded that between 21 and 37% of global greenhouse gas emissions can be attributed to the food system. This systems perspective encompasses crop and livestock land management, land use and land conversion, supply chain activities, including storage, transport, processing, and packaging, and consumption patterns. It brought waste reduction, both along the supply chain and at the point of consumption, and somewhat controversially, dietary choices within the scope of mitigation action. Second, it blurred, even abandoned, the distinction between adaptation and mitigation. Instead, it classified response options in terms of, for example, agricultural measures, soil management, and value chain management. Options such as agroforestry and soil management can plainly deliver both adaptation and mitigation benefits, and indeed contribute to the achievement of wider sustainable development goals. Third, it opened up the option not just of reducing emissions, but of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through land management responses, both within and outside the agri-food system. And this theme was developed further in the 6th Assessment Cycle Working Group 3 Mitigation Report. This systematically categorised carbon dioxide removal according to methods such as those based on biological processes resulting in the storage of carbon dioxide in vegetation, soils and sediments. And these included agroforestry, soil carbon agricultural practices, cropping and forestry residues, pasture management and biochar. Now, the other key word in my homework question was inclusiveness. And this is where I recall my just transition experience, and that justice has both procedural and distributive dimensions. Ambitious climate action imposed top-down, without due regard for the impacts on people's lives and livelihoods, can be seen as a threat. Poorly designed land use changes have the potential to take away livelihoods. Dietary choices can reduce markets for specific agricultural products, and climate response options can entail significant upfront costs. But it's also clear that well-executed climate responses can assist poverty eradication efforts, improve livelihood systems, enhance access to markets, eliminate low productivity practices, and improve crop yields and the economic value of pasture. Many sustainable land management technologies and practices are profitable within 3 to 10 years. And actions are available to help realise these positive outcomes. These include building individual and institutional capacity, accelerating knowledge transfer, enhancing technology transfer and deployment, implementing early warning systems, undertaking risk management, addressing gaps in implementation and upscaling, and putting in place financial mechanisms that overcome upfront costs and allow long-term economic benefits to be realised. Building confidence and trust is crucial for successful action. In my experience, this can only come from meaningful and sustained engagement with those communities who will be affected and must ultimately own climate action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those were important words about taking on the systems perspective, which we always talk about here at FAO, of course, as well, and that building confidence and trust. So now we'll move on to, I would say, live online, our speaker, Dr. Amandeep Singh Gill, who, as you know, is United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Technology. Dr. Gill, I would like to ask you, can you tell us how the UN could effectively support countries to develop and implement strategies and policies to ensure that technological advancements in agri-food systems are inclusive? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Beth. I hope you can hear me well. And
yes.
Thank you to the FAO, to Director General Chu, dear Dongyu, for this opportunity. Would like to acknowledge the presence of my dear friend Rafael, Director General Grossi, in the room today, and the presence of Nobel laureates. This year's Nobel Prizes for Physics and Chemistry have underlined a paradigm shift. We used to think about science applications for technology. Now the loop has been looped, and technology is influencing scientific discovery in ways that were unimaginable before. So tremendous opportunities lie ahead if we can harness them wisely. Beth, before I answer the question, let me just give the audience a very brief context, high-level context. A couple of weeks ago at the Summit of the Future in New York, the 193 member states of the United Nations agreed on a pact for the future. And as part of the pact is the Global Digital Compact, a comprehensive refresh of how we build multilateral, multi-stakeholder cooperation around digital technologies, especially the relevance that we have in specific areas of the SDGs, including food security. Now, why is this important? It's important because we have a new vision that combines the latest developments in data science and AI, the expansion of the digital economy, the opportunities offered by digital public infrastructure to make this aspect of the economy more inclusive, with our long-standing concerns on bridging digital divides, making sure that the online space is human rights respective, inclusive, and does no harm to vulnerable communities like women, children, and others. There is a very significant outcome embedded in the GDC, since artificial intelligence has been mentioned by several speakers, and that's the first ever universal agreement on the international governance of AI. And I'm delighted that IPCC is represented in this panel, because one of those building blocks of the international governance of AI is a regular scientific assessment of the capabilities, the implications, both the opportunities and the risks. And member states have decided to set up an international scientific panel, not quite like the IPCC, but informed and inspired by that experience. There is also a focus on regular policy dialogue so that we can use multilateral, multi-stakeholder forums for international learning at this early stage of the emergence of this technology. And then, given what you have given us as background for this panel, there is an emphasis on collective action, knowledge sharing, and capacity building, for which the Secretary General has been asked to present innovative funding options. So let me now move to your question. AI, digital technologies have immense potential. AI is the ultimate systems technology. So when we speak of food systems, this is uniquely placed to fit the problem, the challenge, from microcasting that Professor Kremer spoke about, building climate change resilient, and bringing data from diverse streams together. For instance, ground-based sensors, which have become much cheaper, data coming from drones in terms of, cropping patterns and acreage, but also impact of disasters and natural events, as well as satellite data. Now, we have ways to bring that together, translate that using large language models for the local context. And we see applications already. Digital Green, for example, working with farmers in Kenya and in India, has brought down the cost of traditional agri-extension 100-fold. So you have tremendous opportunities that are being enabled there. But if we don't get three things right, then we are going to fall short of the challenge you put us through the question. So what are those three things? And I'll conclude with those. First one is we need more work on translation, especially transdisciplinary translation of the emerging technologies, the exciting opportunities, to what the needs are, the needs of small landholders, small farmers. And second, we need to also broaden the base for innovation, which means more local innovation. So this is where I want to underline that monoculture doesn't scale. The forests scale, so we need a more diverse ecosystem. Artificial intelligence opportunities have to be spread around the world. Developers and innovators in the global south in particular need access to compute, to talent, to data sets, and we need a massive effort on building the data sets for the future, especially on climate change, resilient agriculture. We are not going to be able to scrape these off the internet. So a dedicated effort is required since the market incentives are lacking and public-private people, PPP partnerships are important. Lastly, and this goes back to Professor Nobre's presentation, we need to manage the risks and the harms and also unintended consequences with a little bit of humility. You know, we've had techno-solutionism in the past and we are dealing with the consequences, climate change, loss of biodiversity, environmental degradation. So we have to ensure that technologies are applied with a good governance framework so that farmers stay empowered. They're not disempowered. Indigenous communities, their knowledge is protected and in fact leveraged for their own benefit, and that there is not an AI divide with a few geographies building the solutions, taking it to the rest of the world. And therefore, the importance of the SOTF, the Summit of the Future decision on the international governance of AI. Looking forward to working with all of you on these exciting opportunities while managing the risks and the harms through good governance of AI at the international level, complementing what's done at the national and the local level. Thank you. Back to you, Beth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your overview there also of the Pact for the Future, which is indeed a wonderful outcome. And I liked your statement that AI is the ultimate systems technology. That's an interesting way to look at it, but indeed the importance of managing the risks and harnessing the opportunities. Thank you so much. Moving on then to our second panelists, Professor Valmain Tokki, who is a professor of law, University of Waikato, New Zealand, and also chair of the United Nations Expert Mechanism on the Rights of Indigenous People. So the question that we would like to ask you is, how can we ensure that technological advancements and innovations are inclusive and beneficial to Indigenous peoples?
Thank you, Beth. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, tēnā koutou katoa. There is a nexus between technological advances, innovations and research. Indigenous peoples have always been researchers. This is demonstrated by their collecting, analysing, managing data for decision-making, knowledge transfer and other use, mentioned eloquently earlier by Nobel laureate Professor Nobre. As part of the 2030 Agenda, states explicitly reaffirmed their commitment to international law and emphasised that the agenda is to be implemented in a manner that is consistent with the rights and obligations of states under international law. They pledged to leave no one behind and for more systematic data desegregation in order to help achieve and measure those goals. Indigenous peoples around the world are demanding greater data sovereignty and challenging the ways in which states have historically used Indigenous data to develop policies and programs. In the digital age, governments are increasingly dependent on data and data analytics to inform their policies and decision-making. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in Articles 11 and 31 guarantees the right of Indigenous peoples to maintain, control, protect and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expressions, as well as the manifestations of their sciences, technologies and cultures. Additionally, the fundamental right to self-determination is recognised in Article 3 that provides Indigenous peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social and cultural development. Indigenous governance and sovereignty focuses on the aspirations of Indigenous peoples to extend their inherent right of self-determination over research data, especially in an era of increasing digitisation and novel forms of sharing information. Indigenous peoples should be able to preserve from disclosure data concerning their traditional knowledge and sacred sites. Collection of all Indigenous peoples related data is subject to ethical standards and respect for human rights. That fundamental right of self-determination for Indigenous peoples, as affirmed in the Declaration actually includes the right of self-identification and the development of Indigenous peoples' own economic prospects and priorities, the need to carry out culturally appropriate and good faith consultations to obtain free, prior and informed consent of Indigenous peoples prior to the initiation of any project on their lands, to ensure the protection and recognition of the ownership exercised by Indigenous peoples over their territories and livelihoods, and also the recognition of the value and contributions of Indigenous peoples' own knowledge and other matters of vital importance. Data and the right of self-determination supports the concept of Indigenous data sovereignty. Although the concept of Indigenous data protection and data sovereignty is, quite relatively new, it's defined as the right of Indigenous peoples to own, control, access and possess data that derives from them and which pertains to Indigenous membership, knowledge systems, customs or territories. The digitisation of Indigenous data must guarantee their right to self-determination and to govern their data and to use them under their values and common interests, the free, prior and informed consent for their collaborative participation and also to ensure their privacy and intellectual property rights. With the increasing growth of data connectiveness, issues as how data is protected and how data sovereignty is maintained for Indigenous peoples become key, raising challenges for ways to meaningfully protect Indigenous data. Implicit in this, of course, is the role of whether artificial intelligence systems can recognise or accommodate Indigenous data and or Indigenous data systems. Working in collaboration with Indigenous peoples, processes to support collaborative consultation and free, prior and informed consent can be developed to create space and opportunities for Indigenous peoples to organise and govern data. This is of high importance as Indigenous peoples have been identifying data gaps that need to be closed. Indigenous peoples are exercising self-determination efforts to fill these gaps by creating community-driven data collection. As the UN Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples has underlined, when addressing emerging digital and technology issues, there are private projects involving emerging technologies for conservation activities and sustainable investments. These projects collect, digitise and archive information concerning Indigenous peoples and their territories without any protection for the rights of Indigenous peoples over their intellectual property or data sovereignty. This information is converted into digital tokens and traded as financial product or blockchain or other ledger technology. New technology companies conclude contracts with Indigenous peoples without any good faith consultation or proper explanation of implication of such contracts. Based on these contracts, companies may acquire full ownership of information from Indigenous territories, allowing them to sell geological data or data to mining or oil companies, or to those who buy and sell environmental services for the carbon market. The Indigenous territory may be subject to monitoring and surveillance so that buyers of digital assets can observe the territory via satellite. Under the guise of addressing climate change and biodiversity loss, companies involved in the collection and monetisation of environmental data and the creation of digital assets may be violating the rights of Indigenous peoples. Financial stakeholders seeking to buy environmental services to offset carbon in the digital market are likely to contribute to the transfer of ownership of Indigenous land value without the consent or maybe even knowledge of Indigenous peoples concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by underscoring that it is essential to recognise and respect the value of Indigenous peoples' scientific and technological knowledge, practices and innovations. Here, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples will continue to provide guidance for innovation and technology initiatives by clarifying the scope of international human rights standards in relation to Indigenous peoples. Ultimately, of course, the challenge remains not in a lack of innovation, but in those lack of political will to fulfil obligations and commitments such as those outlined in the Declaration, which really reflects general principles of international or customary international law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Toki, for speaking with us about the importance of data sovereignty and issues of inclusiveness and benefit transfer in the context of Indigenous peoples. Moving on, then, I would like to ask Mr. Bent Wendland, who is the Director of Traditional Knowledge Division, Global Challenges and Partnerships Sector at the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, the following question. In the context of the WIPO Treaty to address the interface between intellectual property, genetic resources, and traditional knowledge, how can we ensure that the intellectual property system is accessible and beneficial to marginalized and vulnerable communities, particularly in terms of supporting their contributions to science and innovation? Over to you.
Thank you, Beth, and good afternoon to you all. Thank you for inviting WIPO to be here. I send greetings from my boss, the DG of WIPO, Darren Tang, to DG Chu, through you, Beth, and greetings to you all. I'm going to speak about a new treaty that was adopted recently by the member states of WIPO. You can see the name of the treaty and the main change it would bring about on the screen. There's a little slide. Oh, there you go. The main change being, in short, a new disclosure requirement in patent law that is aimed at combating what we call biopiracy. The new treaty aligns very well with the theme of this forum, in particular the notions of science, innovation, and leaving no one behind. And let me tell you why. The treaty manages to reconcile two objectives that have until now been regarded as incompatible. On the one hand, the promotion of innovation through the incentives provided by the intellectual property system, in this case the patent system, and on the other hand, the conservation of biodiversity, including agro-biodiversity. In short, the treaty reconciles innovation and biodiversity. The treaty is also the first in intellectual property law to explicitly acknowledge and write in the rights of indigenous peoples. By making it mandatory for a patent applicant to identify the indigenous people who provided the knowledge that the applicant used in making their invention, the treaty contributes to validating the valuable insights of indigenous peoples, including their sustainable agricultural practices that preserve biodiversity, provide nutritious food, and help tackle climate change, as we've been hearing. In so doing, the treaty recognizes that indigenous peoples have, throughout history, made enormous contributions to the advancement of science and are considered among the world's first innovators. And I'm also climbing on the shoulders of Professor Nobre, who mentioned the concept of indigenous science, which links in here. Indeed, it's essential to recognize that indigenous peoples and other groups, including small-scale farmers, are often the stewards of the natural resources that global agricultural and food systems depend on. And these contributions to innovation and natural resource stewardship are now formally recognized in public international law in a new intellectual property treaty. In the interest of leaving no one behind, the treaty has two other features I'd like to mention quickly. The mandatory obligation to disclose in patent applications the source of the knowledge and the resources used increases the opportunities for indigenous peoples to share in the benefits arising from the use of their resources and knowledge systems under access and benefit sharing measures. And secondly, the treaty writes in an explicit role and stipulates that indigenous peoples will have a role in the future governance of the treaty and stipulates that they should be consulted on the implementation of some of its clauses. We've heard a lot this afternoon about closing the gap, and I think the adoption of the treaty has shown that in line with that theme and that idea, also the theme of this afternoon of leaving no one behind, that the patent system can evolve towards greater inclusivity, equity, and empowerment. The adoption of the treaty by consensus, and this is on the 24th of May, so not that long ago, the adoption of the treaty by consensus is also a very uplifting message for the benefits of the multilateral system. But in closing, legal frameworks and treaties are just pieces of paper, aren't they? And we need to make sure that indigenous peoples can actually benefit on the ground from treaties like this. So we need practical support, equitable partnerships, empowering partnerships with indigenous peoples so they can benefit in tangible ways. And I hope that other organizations and the private sector can join with WIPO in partnering with indigenous peoples as they make their own choices towards getting actual benefits from treaties like this and meetings like this. And with those words, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wendland, for sharing with us the recently adopted treaty. I think many of us will make sure we go and read it in more detail. Thank you for the reference there as well, and that important point of helping to translate that to practical benefits for the people left behind, potentially left behind. Thank you so much. Now, moving on to our last speaker then of this afternoon, we're happy to have you here, Professor Jingyan Lei, who is Associate Dean, Office of Research and Innovation, Professor of Nutrition at Cornell University in the United States, and as mentioned earlier, also Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Nutrition. So the question we would like to ask you is, what are the key opportunities for biotechnology to transform agri-food systems in a more inclusive way? And how can we also ensure that innovations in this field are accessible and beneficial to all, leaving no one behind? Over to you, Professor Lei. Thank you.
Distinguished chair, panelists, and all guests, I'm most grateful and excited to take this assignment. With the input of my colleagues and my humble knowledge, I would like to divide this biotechnology-driven transformation agri-food systems in 3 stages: the basic discovery, the technology innovation, and field adoption. I would like to address my questions from 3 standpoints: past experience, key opportunities, and new strategies. So have we effectively, inclusively applied existing biotechnology to transform our food systems? I will argue no. A good example is golden rice. Golden rice has potential to meet 80 to 110% of the nutrient requirements of vitamin A for children, and could save annually a 250,000 of lives. However, only the Philippine government has approved the plantation of golden rice. The major obstacle for other countries to adopt this is the fear about GMO, the concern about long-term health risk, the corporate profit-driven, and then the dominance of one-step crop, and also the forced use of technology. So apparently this is misinformation, and also related to the political and public engagement, education, communication, the research approach, the one crop, one trade, and also the intellectual property ownership and access. In contrast, biofortification of step crops has been more successful, which I've personally participated. That approach has produced over 100 varieties of 12 biofortified step crops, reaching 60 countries and 80 million people. So what are the new key opportunities for us to transform, using biotechnology to transform agri-food systems in a more inclusive way? So one is the gene editing and whole genome sequence allow us to improve small crops, underutilized species very quickly and very accurately. And the AI breeding also allow plant breeders to develop new seeds with the desired trees at a very low cost, also faster rate, less than $20,000 per crop. The synthetic biology, fermentation, environmental control, environmental agriculture will allow us to produce food soilless, and also produce plant-based foods and cellular foods, including plant, animal, microbial, single-cell foods, for farmers to target a niche market. Now, the global interest in climate change and environmental sustainability will allow agricultural food systems to transform into carbon sequestrating value-added enterprise. And also the digital data information science, the internet, and also mobile phones will promote the participation and access to biotechnology by small-scale producers and farmers. So what are the new strategies for us to using biotechnology in transforming today's and future agri-food systems to produce enough food to feed everybody a healthy diet? So first, I think we need to define biotechnology more broadly, more inclusively, beyond just GMO and step crops. So we should include all sources of food, animals, plants, microbials, and cellular insects and things like that, also foods from the land and the sea. We should explore all types of biotechnologies, which are using for agriculture, environmental protection, industry, and even bioinformatics. So we should target multiple traits, multiple nutrients, health factors, and then agronomics, and also the environment, the climate benefit factors like drought resistance, heat resistance. Now, finally, I think we need to create a novel ecosystems to inspire and reward academia in engaging the public, particularly the small-scale producers and farmers, to participate the design and the development, and they create new biotechnology instead of defending the existing biotechnology. We should incentivize the private partnership and investment for more inclusive agribusiness market. Finally, we need to educate, enable the end users, the producers, to have the ability to participate in the development of biotechnology, and so also willing and ready to adopt them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Lei. Thank you for indeed discussing some of the new opportunities and new strategies that we can use in helping to adopt some of these biotechnology innovations for healthy diets. So thank you so much. Now I need to apologize to the panelists and our keynote speakers, because I was hoping to ask each of you for your 1 minute key takeaway, but unfortunately we're running a little bit late. So I wanted to ask if maybe just one or two of you would like to have anything that you would like to share after listening to all of the rich discussion this afternoon, of a key 1 or 2 takeaways. I'm looking also to our keynote speakers. I don't know, Professor Creamer, if you'd like to say anything. We can hand you you can come up here if you want, or yes, thank you. You can stand, sure, you can stand there.
Well, I'm not going to try to touch on all of the themes, but let me mention a couple of the themes and share a reaction to them. That there was quite a consensus that we should try to make innovation more inclusive and to serve the needs of a broader range of people than is currently being done under a lot of existing institutions. But there was also a recognition of the role of intellectual property rights, and a recognition that those intellectual property rights systems evolve over time and change. And I'm thinking of some of the earlier comments about the need for practical solutions. So I wanted to share an example of a practical solution to try and modify intellectual property rights systems in ways to make them more inclusive. This will be an example from health, but I think it could be used in agriculture, and I'll share that. So I'll give the example of pneumococcus disease. So until recently, this was a really major killer, millions of deaths. Vaccines were developed against the strains that were common in high-income countries, but different strains were common in low-income countries. And under the existing intellectual property rights systems, first, there wasn't much incentive to create those vaccines. And then second, even if they were created, there'd be an issue of access, because it typically takes vaccines a decade or more to reach lowest income countries. So a group of countries came together and created what's called an advanced market commitment. And that was a commitment that if a vaccine was developed against the strains common in low-income countries, they would help finance the purchase. And that was intended to harness the energy and creativity of the private sector towards some of the problems of some of the poorest people in the world. It turned out this approach, I'm sure it can be refined, but 3 vaccines were developed. Hundreds of millions of doses reached people much faster than is typical for vaccines. And an estimated 700,000 lives have been saved. There's a whole host of problems in the agriculture and food security space and I think it's worth investigating whether similar approaches could be used there. For example, we need heat-resistant sorghum seeds, and maybe it would be good if those seeds were not hybrid seeds that had to be purchased every time from the company. Well, that's going to be, you need to create incentives for that type of innovation, or innovation for, there's at least some discussion of vaccines to reduce methane emissions from cattle. That's something where it's hard to imagine making money from that right now, but if there were an advanced market commitment saying that if there were a safe and effective product, those vaccines would be purchased, at least for low-income farmers, that could potentially help create incentives and get access to that and address climate change.
Thank you so much, Professor Greenberg, for those specific examples. Let me look also at, would you like just 1 or 2 minutes to share some of your key takeaways also? Professor Noble, thank you so much. And apologies.
Yes, I just want to say, I'm not going to say about the Amazon, but I just want to say, as you know, we, for the first time in 120,000 years, we reached 1.5 degrees warmer. 15 months. We don't know exactly why that's going on, but if we continue with emissions, we might reach 2.5 to 2.8 by 2050. And when we reach that temperature, sustainable agri-food systems will disappear all over the tropics. Can you imagine the risks? So just to say, the challenge, reducing emissions, is the greatest challenge of humanity. And particularly, the land use change is something like 30% of emissions, 10% deforestation, and 20% agricultural, mostly, the cattle burps of methane, but also the use of fossil fuels in agriculture. So I just say, also, the big challenge, we have to get to net zero emissions in all sectors, not only fossil fuel, but also agriculture. So sustainable agriculture for food systems is essential also. And I have to say, the Paris Agreement, all the COPs say net zero emissions by 2050. If we go net zero by 2050, we may reach 2.5 by 2050. So probably net zero by 2040. And needless to say, sustainable agriculture becomes a central a central solution for really saving the planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And can we have another big round of applause also for our panelists? And thank you, Dr. Gill, for joining us online. I think it was an excellent session. Thank you for the final words from our keynote speakers. If you don't mind staying one more minute, because we can all be here on the stage while we launch the report. It is a very short event. I know we have actually flights to catch even, but this will be very quick. So ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned at the beginning, the Young Scientists Group was launched in 2022 to champion the youth-led science and innovation at the World Food Forum. So it's an independent collective of scientists under the age of 35 that offers the forum science-based insights and guidance. FAO Chief Scientist is the patron of these young scientists, so we're very pleased to have this esteemed cohort of these brilliant young scientists, scientific minds with us today. Now, the group, where are you in the room of the young scientists? Okay, there, okay, great. We want to see you. Thank you so much. So today we're very proud to launch a report by the group. This report is indeed very relevant to digital agriculture, one of the critical themes of this forum. And so to learn more about it, I'm pleased to invite a representative of the group, Ms. Ebbe Engström. She's currently a PhD student at the Center for Environmental Policy at Imperial College in London. Ms. Engström, welcome to the team. Don't worry, don't worry.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford, for the kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be standing in front of you here today on behalf of the World Food Forum's Young Scientists Group. Our report, which is also launched today, is entitled Digital Technologies for Multidimensional Youth Engagement in Agri-Food Systems Transformation. Digital technologies play an ever-growing role in the lives of youth and have paved way for major developments in the agri-food sector, as we know. They are also used for various interactions and engagements by youth in agri-food systems. However, when we speak of youth engagement in the context of agri-food systems, this can mean many things. And in recent years, youth have been encouraged to become agents of change towards agri-food systems transformation. Therefore, in this report, we have focused on the role digital technologies play in youth engagements towards agri-food systems transformation. This includes how youth use and develop digital technologies, how digital technologies can attract youth to transformative engagements, and how they have allowed for youth to engage in decision-making processes. In doing this, we draw on the experience and perspectives of youth, and we describe the opportunities digital technologies present for youth engagement, but also associated limitations, such as in relations to accessibility and knowledge gaps. Also, digital technologies may not necessarily ensure youth engagement. For example, in decision-making processes, if youth are not given a seat at the table in the first place. More so, digital technologies can only be effective in supporting youth engagement if firstly and foundationally, youth's rights and agency are respected and their ideas acknowledged. If you're interested in learning more about our research, do join us tomorrow at 5:45 in the Sheikh Zayed Center, together with the FAO Chief Economist and Chief Scientist at Interim. And to access the report, there should be a QR code. Please scan this QR code on the screen right now, and it will also be available at totems throughout the FAO during the week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evan. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of this opening session of the Science and Innovation Forum, but it's the start of the Science and Innovation Forum. So I just want to thank you, everybody, so very much for participating. We look forward to your continuous active participation in the various sessions and activities that will follow. So let's continue to exchange ideas, be together, create a future hunger-free for everyone, leaving no one behind. Thank you so much. Now, just to say that we have a very interesting next session coming up on closing the science, technology, and innovation gap. It will be here in this room right after a short coffee break. We hope to start at 4:30, And after that, we'll launch the Foresight report on emerging technologies and innovations. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
It was very nice. Thank you.
Can we take a photo together or something?
Yeah, sure. That'd be nice. Thank you.